Oh, yet again, live from the Fastport Studios in good old NOLA. This is Road Gang Radio, and I am extremely sorry to not have any... Get it done, Colleen!
In the arms of America, although it's the people of America, but I always want to say in the arms of America, because after all, that's the Bob Marley song from which that draws inspiration, etc. ad nauseum. We're still figuring things out here in the most positive, groovy way at Road Gang Radio, all part of RadioNemo.com. You can find us on the Tube of You, the Book of Face, the Odyssey, and the iHeart. Rumbling, bumbling, stumbling, and figuring out our way through this whole process. I still owe my good friends Jim Park and Joanne Ritchie a phone call, one that doesn't involve being on the air right now. But everybody is kind of getting their bite at the title over the first 2 weeks to make sure people know that we're still trying to kind of hold serve, as it were. Guys, I don't know if you've been a part of what's been going on here to any degree, but on Facebook, on YouTube, everywhere that our platform is live, people are participating in all kinds of interesting and wonderful ways, by texting, by chatting. They're just jumping into the conversation. Joanne, Jim, good morning and welcome.
Woo! Good morning. Good morning to you from the Great White North.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
We're still here.
Good to have you both. There's been a lot of stuff that's gone on over the past few weeks. It's funny because there are a few people who have stopped by that I've gotten a chance to talk to. Other people who have been doing these shows with us forever and a day who I haven't gotten a chance to talk to. You guys fall into that second category. So we're not just like ramping this back up. We're checking back in. I mean, there's been a lot of stuff going on. The good news is that even though it's only quote unquote a half an hour, SiriusXM used to take 6 minutes at the top, 6 minutes at the bottom. We then had to remove 3 minutes in the middle of each segment. So we're not losing as much time as we thought in regards to unpacking all this stuff. It means a few less phone calls, but it also means that we get to talk and dig in deep. So good morning to you both. Joanne, would you like to begin? We're going to get through this and see where we go and see how we figure this out together. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Yeah, I would like to start off with a shout-out. Get things off on a positive note. Canada has a new highway angel. I know that there's many American drivers who are honored as highway angels, but, we like to give those who have been recognized by the Truckload Carriers Association, the Canadians, a special little shout-out when we get the chance. So this shout-out is for Oleksandr Tkachuk. He's an owner-operator from Edmonton, Alberta, and he working for Trimac. And this incident happened near the small town of Hardisty, Alberta, last month. He saw, he saw a lone vehicle on the shoulder of the highway. That's not it's not a major highway, and it's not a busy part of the province. But the vehicle was pulled over, and there were 3 young people there out of the vehicle. One was unconscious on the ground, and CPR was being attempted by one of the other young people, but they were both distraught. So Oleksandr, who's trained in CPR, by the way, took over and performed chest compressions while the others called 911. And the 911 dispatch personnel stayed on the line and helped to talk Oleksandr through the procedure. And it was 20 minutes. He kept that up until the emergency personnel arrived and took over. So the young man did not regain consciousness while he was there. So we don't know whether he survived or not at this point. We're just hoping he made it. So thank you to Oleksandr for your quick thinking and willingness to rise to the challenge. And we're happy to have another Canadian angel, highway angel, on the roster.
For all the first response and for all the, making sure that people are okay, the thing that I find most moving is staying with them, Joanne. I don't know what that's the one that touches me the most. I mean, there was a story many years ago about a man who was badly beaten, and the elderly couple across the street that saw it happen, they called the responders. She went across the street and took this man by the hand, and he was barely holding on to consciousness, and she just kept telling him that he was a child of God and was loved until the EMTs could get there. And the idea of when you save somebody and then you stay with them, it just reminds them that there's somebody out there. It really, it's what completes the picture of angel. It really does, because
I think so. Yeah.
they stay with you until the help can arrive. Just remarkable story. Just a great story. What a great way to begin our segment.
Yeah. I'm always happy when we can find something positive to give a little shout out for.
Yeah, and it's important to begin with something positive so that when we turn to go clean up the mess over with the IRP in Ontario, we don't feel too bad about it. Hey, Jim, you want to pivot into this and let us know what's going on with the mess over in Ontario?
Well, a bit of good news on this front, too, I guess. Not quite as good as the Highway Angel story, but apparently we've got things nearly stabilized with the IRP renewals in Ontario. A couple of weeks ago, we told you about the transition with Service Ontario picking up that task now rather than IRP itself. It didn't go too well. There were lots of problems, but they seem to be having it under control because they're cutting off the extensions as of June 30th. So there'll be no more renewal extensions beyond the 30th of June. So just a warning to all the golf fleets and owner-operators who might be tuned in. If you haven't got your IRP sorted out here in Ontario yet, get on it, because you're not going to get any more extensions. It seems that they're just about got things back to normal, and I guess that's pretty good news too. I guess just stay on top of this and don't let it get ahead of you.
Jim, I'm going to go back in reverse, like I said, because we've gotten a whole lot of new people on this platform and people who've kind of lost the thread here. Kind of catch us up. I mean, you don't have to go deep into the weeds on this, I know, because it's given us all a headache. But if you could kind of let people know what has gotten us up to this point, it'll help people understand how the mess cleanup. We're like, oh, that's what they picked up. So kind of take us through that a little bit.
Well, bureaucracy being what it is, doesn't always function as smoothly as bureaucrats would hope. The province of Ontario made some changes to the international registration plan earlier this year. Basically, they moved it under the Service Ontario umbrella, and carriers were now dealing directly with Service Ontario for their IRP renewals, rather than going directly through IRP as they used to do. Not sure why they did that, but that's what happened, and all hell broke loose. Didn't work that well. Carriers were sidelined, owner-operators were sidelined with trucks they couldn't register, new trucks, but they couldn't put plates on because it was taking sometimes 2, 3, 4 weeks to get the registration processed, which was unacceptable, of course, but you can't hurry. You can't hurry the bureaucracy when it decides, you have to do it a certain way. Then God help you if you try and buck the system. So anyway, they seem to have that sorted out, and that's what they claim anyway. The Ontario Trucking Association even has acknowledged that this looks like it's going to go ahead a bit more smoothly. But they, in a press release they sent around to Truck News and various other media outlets, they used some kind of threatening language with respect to MTO and said, this cannot happen again, and we're not going to let it happen again. So they're aware of how much it cost their members in lost productivity with trucks parked against the fence because they couldn't get the registration done. And any owner-operator will tell you, I'm sure, leaving the truck parked in the driveway, there's no way to make any money. And without your IRP, you really can't even hang a base plate on the truck. So it was a real problem, but hopefully they got it sorted out. They say they do anyway.
I read that press release, Jim, and I think you're spot on. I mean, essentially it was the OTA's version of basically saying, go and sin no more. Everybody always misses the point of that particular statement. They all think it means that you get let off the hook. It's basically saying, this is the last chance, pal. And if you don't do this, if you do anything like this again, we're going to take action. I mean, there really was. You're right. There was a veiled sense of menace at the end of that statement. And I was like, what exactly would they do? Was my kind of thought. What would they do to kind of respond to any other kind of screw ups? I mean, what could they do, Jim? I mean, what are they saying there?
I really don't know.
Yeah, that's why it's got me creeped out. I have like no idea. I mean, what are you talking about, guys?
I guess they could make it uncomfortable politically for the government of the day if things didn't go well. They could mobilize their social media machines and get some news coverage on it, and that probably would be what they would do. I really can't see them having any other sort of forceful alternative to bring MTO to bear on this problem, because they certainly can't take over Service Ontario and start doing the work themselves, right? That's not going to happen.
Well,
so,
and
we'll see.
And by the way, people have tried to take over other institutions in Canada. It hasn't worked out very well. Joanne, I am you like that? Joanne, I am interested in moving to Canada, and I am interested when I move to Canada to have a non-driving career in the industry. And I happen to be 30 years younger than I am right now. What can I do, Joanne? What can I do?
Yeah, well, you're joking, but we have a lot of Americans that are moving to Canada. Just thought I'd throw that in there.
I ain't leaving. I'm not leaving. I like it here.
Healthcare professionals, and anyway, this you don't have to be coming in from the storm to take advantage of this program. It's Trucking HR Canada. They're a national not-for-profit association, and they've secured new funding from our federal government for student work placements in the trucking and logistics sector. This particular funding, they have many things going on, but this particular funding will help introduce for the next term coming up, 335 post-secondary students to non-driving jobs in the trucking industry. And that could be, technicians and safety specialists and dispatch and warehousing and a host of others. So they've got Trucking HR Canada has partnered with 125 post-secondary institutions that have transportation and logistics programs. These would be, community colleges across the country. And the idea is to connect these institutions and employers and help deliver real-world training for post-secondary students. So the way it works, the employer gets a wage subsidy of up to $7,000 per student, and the student gets a job, a real job. They're put on the company payroll. The job's for up to 16 weeks at a minimum of 10 hours a week, and this has to be directly related to what they're studying at their community college, their program. So since the program was launched 4 years ago, it's been pretty successful. There's been more than 1,600 students that have taken part, and they've completed work placements, paid work placements with the trucking and logistics sector. So it's a great opportunity for students who are actively looking at postgraduate employment opportunities, and it's also a good opportunity for the employers to build a future talent pool with experienced candidates. So Trucking HR Canada is taking applications now for fall student work placement funding, and you can get more information and application details from their website, and it's fairly straightforward. It's just truckinghr.com. I know you love that HR in there.
Oh yeah. Any chance I get to have, as they say in California, Uber alles, the suede denim secret police who have come for your uncool niece. I'm always down with those guys. Oh yeah, fantastic.
So just remember that Trucking HR Canada, and then their menu is fairly straightforward. It's under student. Career ExpressWay. That's what they call it.
It's right under inform on your fellow employees here. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No. I think this is a program that's moving in the right direction. They started off just kind of feeling their way. This was post-pandemic, and it's been quite successful. They've had. I think there's probably 250 or so employers, companies in Canada that have taken advantage of hiring those students. while they're still, gives them a good, before they graduate, while they're still looking around, it gives the students, as I said, a chance to kind of get the lay of the land, and it also gives those employers, they're building up a future labor pool. So I think it's a win-win all the way around. What is this? That we've got nothing but good news stories?
Oh, don't worry. The last half of Canada Calling, to quote the late great Karen Carpenter, we've only just begun. Kevin Gill wrote me, by the way, to say Service Ontario isn't run by Ontario government anymore; it is done by third party. Thank you for your contribution there, Kevin. We appreciate you. Good to hear from you, my friend. He also gave us a thumbs up in our general direction. That's a lot of good news. And matter of fact, it's a good news sandwich. So it's Joanne, Jim, and then Joanne. I can't believe how spoiled we are with the good news. So now we turn back to Park. And we now come to the main event and the longer conversation in this particular situation. Hey, Jim, I know you're not fake, and I hope you guys know that you're not talking to AI over here. And Joanne is as real as they come. But you got some fake news for us, don't you?
Yeah, I got some fake news for you. I caught some fake news.
Outstanding, by the way. Nice piece of work, by the way.
It just... What was that?
I said, nice piece of work, by the way.
Oh, thank you. This came up a few weeks back. There was I got a flurry of emails from some of my pals in the business going, say it ain't so, Joe. Are we getting new hours of service rules in Canada? And they're bringing in a national speed limiter mandate. And all of a sudden, these emails were coming from a bunch of different drivers and owner-operators and different sources. And I thought, what the heck's going on? So started looking around, and one of them actually sent me a link to one of these stories that was on a Facebook page, of all places. So if it's on Facebook, it has to be true.
It's constitutional if it's on Facebook.
Paragraphs.
It's locked in stone. I mean, it's Mount Sinai truth. Go on.
Yeah. You can trust it, right?
Yeah.
So there was a post I saw that had 4 or 5 short paragraphs about these changes that were coming to speed limiters and hours of service and a few other things. And it's first I'd heard of it. So, being in the news business, editor and journalist and all that, I sort of figured, well, if I don't know about it, there's probably something going on here that merits some investigation. So contacted a few friends over at, not directly at Transport Canada, but friends of friends at Transport Canada, we'll call it that. Started doing a bit of research on the likely sources of these stories, and found like nothing. There was nothing in the news anywhere, nothing from Transport Canada, nothing from any other reliable source that suggested any changes were coming to hours of service or speed limiters or anything else, licensing provisions. So it got me wondering how quickly, how quickly this stuff spreads on social media. Like, it's almost instant. As soon as one person gets bad news, they pass it on to their friends, and then more bad news gets passed around to more friends, and before you know it, we have a crisis on our hands. And that's when I get the call. Hey, Jim, is this true? So I just thought it was ironic that the folks who, it seems to me anyway, the folks who are decrying fake news in the mainstream press and media, and indeed on truck news sometimes, would fall so easily for a story like this. I just got to wondering, like, why? It's back in 2007 when we changed the hours of service significantly here in Canada. We went to the 36-hour reset and a bunch of other big changes that caused, all kinds of concern. They were consulting on that. They, the government and various agencies, were consulting with industry and stakeholders and everybody else for like a couple of years before any changes were made, and the original version of those hours of service never saw the light of day because industry, insisted on some changes, and the government said, yes, that's a good idea. So, I mean, how would anybody think the government is simply going to come along? Well, I know this happens in the U.S. a lot these days, but when they're going to make some significant change to the way the industry does business, they generally consult with industry, and very little ever moves forward on an instant basis. It takes time. So, does that not occur to them? To the fake news crowd? Whatever happened to critical thinking? I guess
Jim,
this boils down to.
Jim,
when you see something outrageous, they may question it.
Yeah, Jim, I actually, I dug in, Jim. I dug into what you were saying, and I will tell you, I actually have a theory. I want to bounce it off of both you guys, and it's like not me. I'm not explaining it so much as I think this is what's happening. One of the ways that capitalism functions is that it succeeds when people find markets for which there is a demand. The idea that, very rarely do people succeed saying, oh, there's a glut of this, I should get into that. That is not a good model for business. A good model for business is you see a gap in regards to demand. You can make an argument in a capitalist functioning society, there are two areas of demand. A demand of need, the idea that, I need certain foods, I need shelter, I need mobility. Those are things you need. Then there is emotional need, the way I look, the way I feel, how I hold myself, who I want to be associated with, and people make purchases in that direction. I think that there's a group of people out there who have an emotional need. Their priors demand that whatever a government does, whatever the mainstream opinion is, whatever the consensus is, they are skeptical. And by the way, that is not a bad thing entirely, that they actually, want to check, want to make sure. But that goes from wanting to...
skepticism's good.
It's a good thing. But I think what happens is that skepticism, when it becomes the only reflex, becomes calcified into simply not accepting anything, no matter how logical the pattern of it seems. So what you do then is that you search for, your immediate reflex is not to examine what is being presented. Your immediate reflex is to reject what is being presented and immediately go searching for evidence of the contrary. When there is no evidence of the contrary, that means there's a gap there, which means that grifters and peddlers of nonsense in a capitalist society say, hey, these people have an emotional need, and that emotional need is to be a contrarian, is to be opposed to whatever reality is, or the consensus opinion. And so I think that there's a lot of really smart hustlers and grifters out there who go, you know what? These guys don't believe anything, so we're going to give them the opposite of whatever everybody else is saying so that they can feel like they got someplace first. I think it's also, and it's a human need, to be in the know, to be on the inside, to know it before anybody else does. And the possession of that makes them feel important and inflated. And I think a group of very clever and sinister players are testing the waters to see how much nonsense they can flood the zone with. That's what I think goes on in these situations. That's my take. I would love both you and Joanne to talk about that.
What I noticed when Clark brought this to my attention, and I said, have you heard anything? And I started looking around. I'm skeptical of anything I see on social media, by the way. But it was interesting because I think, which is the case in a lot of these scenarios when you start checking your sources, is that you go round in a circle. You go to this source and that source, and they all point to other sources who point to other sources. And you all come back to like really nothing. The other interesting thing is that there were a few things in this list of changes that they had, massive changes coming to the trucking industry in Canada, and there were those outrageous ones. They're hard to believe, for hours of service, as Park said, and for speed limiters across Canada in an instant. But there were also a couple of little things in there that were actually almost right. they had been gleaned from bits and pieces of other things that were going on in the industry with, in a province or this sort of thing. But of course, there were a couple of websites too that we kept leading back to. A lot of this was on Facebook, obviously, but the websites were, they were just, when you started looking at who are these people, there was no information on who they were, how to contact anybody. It was just a list of quasi news items, I guess. The 5 best things and the 10 best ways to do such and such and all that sort of thing. But I think it's a good lesson in how people can educate themselves in trying to determine, when they start doing their research, what's credible and what's not. The first thing that caught my eye, of course, being a stickler as a copy editor, was a lot of the the grammatical errors, the spelling errors, and that sort of thing that you wouldn't see in any kind of a government press release. And also this overall thing of individuals not really understanding how our government works. That you're not going to have the federal government doing things that provincial governments have jurisdiction over.
Joanne, the speed of which this episode has gone by has been wonderful. By the way, rack-packed and stacked with great news, great content. I owe you both a phone call over the next 2 to 3 days. Thank you so much. It's good to have you back. We should have our theme song back in a couple of weeks. Can't wait to get that going as well. Joanne Ritchie, Jim Park, OBAC.ca, 2 of our favorite people from north of the border, 2 of our favorite people in the known universe. We like them better than even those folks on Zebulon 5 who we like. Thank you both so much. Get out of here.
That was fast.
That was fast, man.
Yes, in a couple of weeks.
Thank you, sir.